All right, what we're going to be doing today is the new modernized vehicle inspection on a tractor trailer. And this will be a checklist that you will have. The examiner will give this to you along with a grease pencil or a marker to mark off as you do your items. You can check those off. If you're following along in the classroom, your instructor probably should have passed one of these out to you so we can follow along. All I'm going to do is just like they want you to do on the exam. I'm going to go down and do each one of these things. Now, you should have learned how to inspect the entire vehicle. What you're going to find when you test, you're only going to test on these items and not everything on the vehicle. All right, so let's go inside the cab. All right, what we're going to do is the first thing on the list. We're going to do our air brake check. We know it as the lab, leaks, alarms, and buttons. So I want to turn the key on, make sure the brakes are set, make sure you're in neutral, and crank it up. We're going to let the air build to governor cutout, watching our air gauges. These need to build between 120 and 140. It looks like they're not at the cut-in pressure, so we don't know that it's truly full all the way, so I'm going to pump it down and force the governor to kick in so we get a fresh purge so we know it's full. And we'll build that to the governor cutout. Monitoring the gauges. We want to hear it when it reaches governor cutout. Just heard the purge, so we know we reached governor cutout. So I'm going to turn the engine off, leave my key in the on position, supply air to my truck and trailer, and release the emergency brakes or the parking brakes. Once the needle's stabilized, I'll put my foot on the brake pedal, and I'm going to hold it down, and I should not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. And my stopwatch. Foot is on the pedal, waiting on the needles to stabilize. The needles have stabilized, so I'll start that 1 minute, and I should not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. You're looking and listening for air leaks. If you notice it's lost more than 4 psi, then you better explain that to your examiner that the truck failed the leak check. Don't hear or see any leaks. All right, it's been 1 minute and the truck passed that test. It did not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. Now we're looking for a low air warning indicator. It'd be a light and or buzzer, and it has to go off before it drops below 55 psi. And I must explain to the examiner when this truck actually goes off. So the best thing is push and wait. See, let the needle stabilize. There's our low air warning indicator. Came on around 60, 65. Oops. So I have to call that out. It came on before 55, but I do need to call out when it actually comes on. Now I'm going to continue to fan the brakes, and somewhere between 45 and no less than 20, these buttons are going to pop out and activate my emergency brakes. So we'll fan them down and see when they actually pop out. We will explain that to the examiner as well. If they fall before 45 or after 20, you better tell the examiner. At this point, we were at pretty much 0 psi, and these buttons have not popped. So what you'd want to tell the examiner is they should have popped between 45 and 20. We're now reading 0, and they have not popped out. They let all the air out, they just didn't pop. You see that? All right, so now I want to crank the truck back up. Let the air build, so I can take this and check off I did my air check. Now I'm going to do a parking brake and trailer brake check. So let the air build up. Now for the parking brake test, I do not have to build it all the way up the governor cutout. But I do want to get it over 100 PSI because most trailers these days won't allow you to release the brakes on the trailer until it's above 100. So we're above 100. So I'm going to release the brakes on my trailer so I can check the parking brake of my tractor. So I'm going to put it in gear, forward gear, give it a little fuel, and feel that the parking brake of my tractor is holding. Set the brake on the trailer, release the brake on the tractor, and check the parking brake of the trailer. Make sure it'll hold. It's holding. So now we're going to release them both and do a service brake check. I'm going to get rolling at 5 miles an hour, hit the brake. I want to make sure the brake is working properly. It didn't grab, we stopped smoothly, and the wheel doesn't pull left or right, indicating brakes are out of adjustment. There we go. Ought to be good enough right there. So apply the brake, and it stopped fine, and the wheel did not move. Return it back to neutral, set my brakes, and check off what I've done. I've done my parking brake, and I've done my service brake. Now it wants me to check my lighting indicators. So I'm going to check my left indicator. It works. My right indicator works. Four ways or hazards work. Cut the headlights on and make sure the high beam indicator works. So I still have to do my ABS light and my DEF light. So I'm waiting on those. My emergency equipment, I would check my fire extinguisher to make sure it was securely mounted in the truck and it was fully charged, needle was in the green. I'd make sure I had spare fuses either up in the cubby hole or in the main fuse box. And I have 3 red reflective triangles that I'll have in the vehicle with me. So I want to check off my emergency equipment. And now I want to do my windshield. My windshield is not chipped or cracked. It is clean. There are no stickers or obstructions blocking my view. My mirrors are clean and they're adjusted to me. I can see down both sides, as well as my fender mirrors. They are clean and allows me to see down the side of my vehicle. So scratch that off. Now my wipers and washers. The wiper arms are metal, so I want to make sure the metal arms are secured to the truck. They're not bent or cracked. The blades are secured to the arms. They're not dry rot or they're split. And we're going to make sure the fluid flows and we have proper tension to the glass. So we're looking for a working squirt. And it works and it squirts. So we'll check off our wipers. Now we're going to do the heater and defrost. So I'm going to put this on defrost and floor at the same time so I can check both heating systems at the same time. Cut the fan on full blast. I hear it engage, so I know they're blowing at the heat and the defrost. Check off heater and defrost. Now I'm going to blow my horns. I've got my city electric horn and my air highway horn. Both of those work. So now I'm going to ask the examiner if with their help, they could help me do an external light operations check. I'll tell them to go to the front of the vehicle, and I'm going to have them check every vehicle on, or every light on this vehicle. So we'll have them go to the front, and I'd have them check the left turn signal at the front, the right turn signal, the four-way flashers, the high and low beam clearance lights. I'd move them down the side of the truck to check all turn signals, four-way flashers, clearance lights, marker lights, and running lights. They would check the rear of the trailer for all the clearance lights, marker lights, turn signals, and four-way flashers. And they would check the brake lights to make sure they come on and go off. And they would come up the side and check all the side lights on the truck and trailer as well. So once you've done that, you'd be able to check that off. So I got one more thing to do in here. Shut my key off. And when I cut my key on, I want to look for an ABS light and my DEF regen lights. I want to make sure they come on and go off, indicating the systems are working properly, as well as the ABS light at the back of my trailer on the driver's side. Make sure it comes on and goes off. So we have ABS, we have DEF. ABS is on the trailer. They're all off, so everything's working properly. So now I can finish my lighting indicator. And now we're ready to go outside to the front of the vehicle. All right, so what we're gonna do now is a lens check. So I have to check all the lenses on the front of my vehicle for my lights and my reflectors. I don't have to ID what they are. We did that during the operations check. What we're checking these lenses for is none are missing, none of them are broken, They are all clean and proper color of amber and clear for your headlights. Check that off. Now we're going to do a fluid leak, our fluid levels. Pop the hood. And as we're just looking underneath, we're making sure there's no puddles, nothing dripping underneath the vehicle. Over here where we have a better view, we're going to make sure we don't see any puddles in, on, or under the transmission or engine. I want to check all the hoses in general that are visible to me, making sure all the clamps are on tight, nothing's dry rotted or cracked. The main thing, I don't see or hear any leaks. And we'll go to the other side. Again, hoses in general, all of them that are visible to me. I'm making sure that I don't hear or see any leaks. The lines are securely fastened with no damage. So that would be our fluid and leaks. Now fluid levels. Here's the engine oil dipstick. I'll pull it out and make sure it's above the add or the refill mark. Here's my power steering reservoir fluid. I can see it's full. It's at the max line. My coolant reservoir is right here. I can see it's at the max line as well. So I've checked all my fluid levels now. Check that off. Now I'm going to do my steering system. My steering gear box is securely mounted with no leaks. The lines that are attached to them are securely attached, no damage, no dry rots or cracks, and they're not leaking either. I'm going to check the linkage from my steering box to my wheel all the way to the other wheel. The pitman arm, the drag link, upper and lower control arm, and the tie rod. Make sure none of those are broken or cracked. Make sure they're secured to each other with castle nuts and cotter keys. And also at each connection, there's a ball joint inside. Make sure those are not worn or loose. Then I can check off my steering system. Now I'm going to do my tire. I'm just following the list. I'm going to check the inside, outside, and the top of my tire for abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Make sure the tread's wearing evenly. I'm going to use a tire gauge to check the tread depth, make sure it's at least 4/32. My valve stem is not missing or broken. It has a cap. I would check that with a gauge to make sure the pressure was proper for this tire. Check off my tire. Now my rim, inside and outside of my rim. No bends, no cracks, no welding repairs. Right here where the lug nut studs come through, make sure the holes are still round. There haven't been no shiny metal where they've been moving around. Check my lug nuts to make sure they're all present, none are missing. I know they're secured because I don't see oxidized or rust trails right here or shiny threads, and I have no broken studs. My suspension system back in here. I'm going to check the front and rear spring mount to make sure there's no missing hardware that secures it to the frame. The mounts themselves are not bent or cracked. Now I'm going to check the leaf springs themselves. The leaf springs have not shifted. They are not broken and none are missing. My shock absorber is securely mounted with no damage and no leaks. And I want to make sure we just back up real quick when we do that suspension. And we just take an overall look at the vehicle. Make sure the vehicle is sitting level. Now I want to check my brake line. The brake hose, the fittings at each end, make sure they're secured and not leaking. The hose itself, make sure it's not ripped or cut. And then right inside here, I want to look at my brake drum and my linings to make sure there's no oil, grease, or contaminants on my brake shoes or my linings. Now we'll check those off of our list. And now we're going to do the side of the vehicles. So I want to check the side of my truck and my trailer. I'm looking at all the lenses for my lights and reflectors, making sure none are missing, none are broken. They're all clean and a proper color of amber at the front and red in the rear. Now I want to check my mirrors on the outside. So I want to check these fender mirrors and my door mirrors, making sure all the hardware that secure them to the vehicle is present. None of the braces or arms are broken or cracked. The mirrors themselves are not cracked or damaged, and they're clean. Right in here, make sure we have our battery box. So I want to look at these batteries to make sure the batteries are securely fastened. You can actually see the brackets that hold the batteries down. So the batteries are secured. Now I want to check all the lines to make sure they're securely fastened to the leads. And there's no tear, rip in the lines, no bare wires showing, no insulation, and no excessive corrosion on the leads or the lines. And I also want to make sure this lid securely fastens that contains my batteries. Now we have a DEF tank and a fuel tank. We want to make sure both these tanks are securely mounted. Their caps are on tight. The tanks have not been leaking. The caps have not been leaking. And all the lines associated with them have not been leaking either. Now I want to check the frame of my truck. So I want to check my frame rail to make sure it's not bent, twisted, or cracked. No holes have been drilled in it. No welding repairs have been done, and if it was welded on, I'd make sure the welds were not damaged. And I want to check all my cross members. This is really covering them up. It's hard to see your cross members. But here we go. Everywhere we've got these, we've got cross members. So we want to make sure all the cross members are securely fastened. None of them are missing, and none of them are broken. And that's the frame of the truck. Now the frame of the trailer, we want to check the frame of our trailer, the longitudinal, making sure it's not bent or cracked. No broken welds, so this would be a place where there'd be a weld. No broken welds, no holes have been drilled in it. This has cross members, so making sure all the cross members are securely mounted. They're mounted with welds, so there's no broken welds. They are not bent or cracked, and none of them are missing. And that will be all with our frame. And now some coupling devices. So we're going to go over here and check our coupling. And go ahead and climb up here. I'm checking the airline fittings at the tractor side. Make sure they're secured, not damaged, no audible leaks. The electrical plug is seated properly and locked in place with lip over lip. Electrical plug on the trailer side is seated properly and locked in place, lip over lip. My fittings right here that go into my glad hands, they are secured, not damaged, no audible leaks. The glad hands have a good seal. They are secured and they are not damaged. Now the lines themselves are not tangled up, pinched, or crimped. No repairs have been done to them. They're not dragging up against anything, and there's no bare wire or insulation showing through on my electric pigtail. So if you climb down, now we're going to check our fifth wheel skid plate. This is the fifth wheel skid plate. I need to explain to the examiner that the fifth wheel skid plate is secured to its platform, and the platform itself is what secures the assembly to the truck. So my skid plate is secured with pivot pins and keys to the platform, and the platform is secured to the truck with mounting bolts. My skid plate is not bent or cracked, and it's properly greased. Now we need to check our kingpin, which we can't really see. Have to get under here. Ow. All right, but we're looking back up at our kingpin. We want to make sure it's not bent or cracked. All right, we want to look at the apron of the trailer. This is the apron. making sure there's no bends, cracks, or holes in it. And we want to make sure we see no daylight between the apron and the skid plate itself. It's flush where they meet each other. Now we want to check our locking devices. Right here we can see the locking jaws are secured around the shank of the kingpin. And we want to make sure there's no excessive play between the shank of the kingpin and the locking jaws. And we'll move out. And we'll go up to our release handle. Our release handle is securely mounted to its actuator and it's fully engaged in the locked position. Now we want to check our landing gear. We want to make sure our landing gear is fully raised. The crank handle is secured. See all the nuts and bolts that hold the braces on and support it to the trailer? None of those are missing. They're all secured. And check for any of the metal being bent or cracked. Your braces, your landing pads, any of the metal, make sure none of that's bent or cracked. And since we want to make sure we have clearance to make turns between our mud flap and our landing gear so we can make turns without them touching each other. And now we need to check our DOT reflective tape down the side of this trailer to make sure it's affixed securely to the vehicle all the way down. And the back of the trailer also has DOT reflective tape affixed securely to the vehicle. And now back here on my lenses, I want to check all the lenses for my lights and my reflectors to make sure none are missing, none are broken. They are clean and proper color of red. And that will conclude the test. So as you're doing your test, just kind of do one thing at a time, and you'll be able to mark them off as you do them, and you'll know whether or not you've completed everything.